Hello Year 10, Mr. Smith, here I am again, and today is quite a sad day because this is the last of our living room lessons on weather and climate. This is the last part of that topic. However, don't worry, I'm going to keep going straight into the next topic so you'll still get to see this face all the time. We've obviously been doing, this is our 10th lesson, a landmark, maybe I'll get a reward from YouTube, and we've also been having a look at a range of things. We've had a look at why we get the certain weather we do in the UK, why certain parts of the world get certain types of weather, such as our climatic zones. We've had a look at high and low pressure, we've had a look at weather hazards, we've had a look at a low pressure weather hazard, we had a look at Typhoon Haiyan, and what we're coming on to now is the last part, which is having a look at one more weather hazard. But this lesson's weather hazard is completely different to Typhoon Haiyan and our tropical storms, because we're going to be looking at a high pressure weather hazard today, which occurs in a completely different way and brings completely different conditions with it. So what you're going to need for today's lesson is your exercise book, a pen and a ruler, and your phone. There are no extra sheets or anything you need for this, just your big brains, all right? So as per usual, we will get started with a little jog your memory. So which of the following are economic impacts of Typhoon Haiyan? How does altitude affect the climate of the UK? And which three indicators does HDI use? So in a moment, pause your screens and scan the QR code for me and have a go at these questions. Okay, hopefully you've had a go at that. So let's get started on our lesson for today. So we are, as I say, going to be having a look at a high pressure weather event, and that covers all range of events, but the ones we're going to be focusing on is a drought, and we are going to be having a look at the UK drought of 2018. So that really lovely hot summer of 2018, which was lovely for us, but there were a lot of impacts of this storm. So what we're going to be doing is, this drought. What we're going to be doing is having a look at what caused the drought, what some of the impacts were, and what some of the responses were. So your title in your books today is UK Drought of 2018, a high pressure weather hazard. Can you please all write that in? Underline it with a ruler. This is a case study. This is a named example that you have to have. The spec tells us you need 2 named examples of weather hazards. So you have to know facts about this. So please make sure that you are writing and making good notes on this. So what I want us to have a think about first is what actually happened. I'm sure we can remember the lovely summer we had a couple of years ago, but what actually happened during this high pressure weather event? So what I would like you to do first of all, on the board are 4 of the kind of impacts of this drought, 4 of the main events, the landmarks throughout it. And what I'd like you to do very quickly, very easily, all you're doing is reading dates, is I would like you to write these in order of when they happen. So you have like a mini timeline of the event of this drought, okay? So pause your screens now and write this out for me. So just quickly, I will talk through this with you. So our first one is obviously 19th of April, which was a landmark in itself in that it was the hottest April day we have had since 1949. I remember it so clearly thinking, oh my God, it's April, why is it so hot? So we had recorded temperatures of 29 degrees Celsius, which is considerably above our average April temperatures now. If you have a look outside now, we're in April now, and yes, it's lovely outside. I went for my walk this morning and it was really, really nice, but it's only like 15, 16 degrees out there. So for it to be 29 degrees, that is ridiculous. That's really, really high. And then the main heat wave was begun on the 23rd of June. So we had a few days really nice in April, and then it kind of relaxed for a little bit. But come June, we had this main beginning of a heat wave, and this heat wave went on all through the end of June, July, and in August. And in July and August, we recorded temperatures of over 35 degrees Celsius. I can so clearly remember some of you sat in my classroom moaning, saying, Mr. Smith, what's the highest temperature it has to be before we get to go home? And me saying, there ain't no high temperature. But it was really, really, really hot. We had really, really hot July and August. And it wasn't until November that the drought restrictions were lifted. So the restrictions that the government gave were not lifted until November. We had a really nice September, we had a nice October. It wasn't until November that this was lifted. So this was kind of, if we kind of think about it, it's, yes, April we had this little kind of fluctuation, this anomaly. But this was a kind of June, July, August, September, October. We had almost 5 months of drought condition where we had very little rainfall, really high temperatures. So what we need to think about first is why this happened. So there were two main causes of this drought, okay? Now the first one is obviously that we were in a high pressure weather system. We've said this is a high pressure weather event, and obviously high pressure weather systems means that it is dry. Why does it mean that we get really, really dry conditions? But also because of where we are, because of being in the southeast, this drought mainly affected the south of England. We had tropical continental air masses, and this meant that we had very hot, very dry weather. Why? So what I would like you to do in your books is pause your screens, and I want you to write causes as a subheading, and then I would like you to say high pressure equals dry because, and finish that sentence. Why does high pressure lead to really dry conditions? And then I want you to do tropical continental air mass means hot and dry weather because. Why does that air mass mean that we have that kind of weather? So again, finish that sentence. So pause your books, pause your phones, your videos, and copy out these two sentences and finish them off for me. Hopefully you've had a go at those. So let's talk about high pressure again. So high pressure means that it was really dry because our air is sinking. And as our air is sinking, it goes from cold place to hot place. And any moisture in that air evaporates off due to this rapid change in temperature, meaning that there is no moisture in the air, we have no clouds, no wind, really clear conditions. So because of this high pressure weather event, it meant that we had really sunny long days. We had no clouds, we had no precipitation. It was really, really dry. And tropical continental air means that we have hot and dry air because our prevailing air mass was coming from the southeast. And because it's coming from the southeast, because it's coming from the south, it means that it's going to be tropical. It's going to be warmer than if it was coming from the north because it's coming from the equator, from the tropics. And because it was coming over the continent of Europe and Africa, this meant that there was very little moisture. It wasn't picking up moisture as the air mass was blowing over the wind, meaning that we had really, really dry conditions. So because of this high pressure and because of this tropical continental air mass, this led to this prolonged period of dryness within the UK. So what I want us to have a think about now are some of the different impacts. So what were the problems created from this weather event? So what I'd like you to do is make a copy of this table. So you've got impacts, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 impacts that you're going to get, and the group of people affected. And what I want you to do is scan the QR code or copy the link and watch the video. And whilst watching the video, I want you to write down the impacts and then say what groups of people were specifically affected by these impacts. Once you've done that, just because we love it, I want you then to go through and sort them into whether it's a social impact, economic, or environmental. Remember, social, anything to do with people's lives. Economic, to do with businesses, to do with trading, to do with jobs and employment. And environmental, anything to do with our natural landscape. So pause the video, scan the QR code, make a copy of this table, and write out our impacts and the groups for me. I'm going to talk through some of the things you could have got from that video then. So we had pressure in hospitals because there were more people visiting hospitals, people who would have been affected, doctors, nurses. You could have also put the elderly because there were more elderly in hospital. There were more heat-related deaths. You again could have put that this affected the over 70s mainly, so the elderly people were more affected by this, but also families who might have lost grandparents, etc. Accidents on building sites. Because it was so hot, people weren't able to work at their same kind of rate, their same speed, so this had a big impact on the different labourers. Lots of crops were destroyed because there were fires from this drought, which would have affected farmers. There were leisure sites ruined, such as football pitches. This might have affected young families, young children, footballers, I don't know. Rivers running at their lowest levels ever had an impact on the fishermen because they were unable to collect the fish. And water shortages had an impact on a wide range of people, but it quite significantly had an impact on the farmers. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through a few more impacts, and we're going to try something a bit different again. Mr. Smith's being very adventurous at the moment. First, to get the tour around the living room. Now, I'm going to play a game of charades. Now, as you can see today, my smiley face was playing games. My not so smiley face was playing games on your own, which is exactly what I'm going to have a go at. So, in a moment, I'm going to go through a range of effects, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to act them out with props because I can't do them all without just acting, all right? So I have got some props, And whilst you are watching me make a complete and utter fool of myself, I want you either to do a list of the impacts or do a mind map of the impacts and try and get down what some of these different things I'm trying to get across to you are. I will go through the answers afterwards because this could end terribly, okay? So just bear with me on this, and please don't put me all over Instagram. Okay, year 10. So how this is going to work is I've got a little pot with my impacts in. I'm going to pick one out, and then I'm going to act it out somehow, and you need to write down what the impact is, okay? So in a moment, I am going to go to silent, and you are just going to watch and try and work out what on earth I'm trying to show you, okay? So I'm going to go silent in 3, 2, 1. that went wonderfully, and I'm sure you got all of these impacts from what I was trying to do. So we've got increased hospital admissions, particularly the elderly. Higher levels of air pollution meant that people with respiratory illnesses were affected. Train lines buckled. Lack of vegetation for farm animals. Salad crops in short supply. Crops didn't grow. Tourism increased with more staycations as people decided to stay at home. There were more wildfires. Salmon and trout had to be rescued from the rivers before they dried up. There were more flies, and there was an increase in butterfly species. I'm sure you got all of those from what I was doing, and I'm sure I didn't make a fool of myself. Okay, so as I mentioned, this drought condition led to further complications in that it created fires. So wildfires began to break out across England. The two largest fires broke out in Saddleworth and at Winter Hill, on the 28th of June, so that day when it was a week after it was classified as a drought. And the one at Winter Hill was, sorry, not Winter Hill, the one at Saddleworth was England's largest wildfire in living memory. So it was a big fire, it had a lot of impact, as we can see on farmers' fields here. Also, we had some bin lorries getting stuck as the roads actually melted. It was so hot. After such a prolonged period of time, our tarmac was melting. And here's a bin lorry stuck. Tourism increased by 20% in the UK as European hotels and resorts, meaning that all of those European resorts that British people normally go on holiday to had to slash their prices. So not only could you have a lovely little weekend in England, you could get a cheaper trip away in Europe. So what we're going to have to think about now is what was done to try and prevent the impacts of this storm. So on the board are some of our responses. However, I have put them into some little dingbats for you. So I've replaced some of our words with little pictures that you need to work out. So what I would like you to do is pause your screens, and I want you to write a heading that says responses, and then work through these 5 responses and try and work out what I was trying to get you to put down. We will go through it afterwards. Okay, I'm sure you managed to get all of these. So our first one is schools, advised not to let children go outside between 11 and 3 unless in shaded areas. So schools were told not to let children go outside. So during lunchtime, you might remember, you were told that you had to be in the shade. You couldn't just go sit in the middle of the field and sunbathe. Not that you all listened to that. Residents were asked not to use hoses when they were watering, she's got a wart on her nose, watering their gardens. To prevent there being a lot of wasted water. There was increased adverts about the importance of sun cream and hats. So there were adverts on TV, on social media, reminding people to put sun cream on, to put hats on. Commuters were advised not to take the tube during peak hours because there were loads of people who were fainting because the tubes got so hot. And then the last one, I didn't give you anything to work out, you just copied that one out. People were advised to keep the curtains closed during the day. So a lot of these responses were more kind of government advice, these are what you should be doing. It wasn't like loads and loads of aid was brought in. However, there were a lot of emergency services, there were army personnel, there were firemen, policemen having to deal with the fires. But most of it was kind of advisory stuff that we were told to do in order to reduce the impact on the NHS, okay? So that is the end of our lesson, and that is the end of this weather and climate unit. What you are going to be doing now, and your teacher will explain this because you won't get a video for your next 2 lessons or so, is you are now going to be filling in that revision pack that you were given before school finished. So you've all got that revision pack. So if you've not been filling it throughout, your next lesson is going to be filling that in. And then on the lesson after that, you are going to be doing a weather and climate assessment. Your teacher will communicate with you how you're going to do that, but you will be doing that. And then we will start our next topic after that. But what you should have from today is your exercise book, a pen and a ruler, your phone, the timeline of the drought, the causes of the drought, the impacts table with the groups of people, more impacts, so that's your spider diagram or list or whatever you did, and the responses, okay? So that is us done with weather and climate now. Our next topic is going to be having a look at climate change. So it is a little bit similar, there is some crossover, but obviously quite a different topic in itself as well. So well done Year 10, we survived our first unit of video lessons. Hopefully you have managed to do as well as this with these videos as you would do in lessons. Please let me know if you have any constructive advice or feedback on this. Well done Year 10, you are brilliant.